Gabby, 2010 Super Bowl. The Saints over the Colts. By a final score of 31-17, Drew Brees is your MVP. We were in Miami at Sun Life Stadium, but I don't want to talk to you about that. But I want to talk to you about something that also happened that day. And that was your Washington Capitals at home as the then named Verizon Center, facing off against the Pittsburgh Penguins, the #1 rivalry in hockey, 2010. An amazing come-from-behind victory for your Washington Capitals. It took overtime. It took Mike Knuble. It took Alexander Ovechkin a hat trick. The attendance was announced at 18,000. And there was a snowstorm. And it was an afternoon game because we know the NHL is not going to program up against the Super Bowl. All these things going into making, and I remember this one like it was yesterday. Crosby with a pair, Jordan Stahl with a pair, Ovechkin with a hat trick. I remember this one like it was yesterday. This was one of the best games in that rivalry from that era. Take us back.
Well, yeah, you know what? I'll take you back. That was when I was in Washington last week, and people are talking about the snowstorm that just occurred. I said, yeah, but do you remember the one in 2010? Because we were living there and nobody got out. There was at least 2 feet of snow everywhere. So the day before, I remember I asked George, I said, George, somehow I got to get to DC, downtown. So he said, get a hotel room downtown. So I got a hotel room downtown, so we didn't have to right across the street from the Verizon Center, and so we didn't have to trudge, to get there. And all I remember was hearing, "Hey, the Penguins had to drive 10 hours by bus to get here because they couldn't. Planes were down, airports were down, and so it was a crazy start to it. But I mean, it's the most eerie day I think I've ever been in, because if you went outside, not a soul was on the street. When I say not a soul, and it was, it reminded me of that. I wish I could think of the movie. It was Patrick Swayze when the Russians attacked in 1985 or something, and him and a bunch of kids went up in the hills to defend America. It was so quiet, and like I'm going, what's going on? Until we actually started the game, and I guess two teams that didn't like to travel in the snow were so pissed off at each other they decided to have the best game of the year.
It was an awesome game. It was so much fun. Crosby scored a couple of goals in the first period. Do you remember anything about that specifically? Crosby scoring in Washington, it all is always, quote unquote, an issue for the Caps and their fans.
Yeah, I remember when I'm rewatching it and Crosby scoring the one goal and going, did that effing go in? And he says, I can't believe that went in. Like, I mean, and he was like, basically calling our goalie a sieve, or I think Backstrom put it in off his stick or something. Yeah. So I said, well, that guy's got a lot of jam, boy, to say that on national TV. Now, obviously, they bleep out the words that he was didn't hear. But I remember that. Remember Knuble scoring the overtime goal. Remember, it was our 14th win in a row, which
you're on the run.
was even more important to me, obviously. And Ovi scoring 3 goals. And it just seems like when Ovi and Sid got together, that was probably the height of their rivalry. That, I mean, they would each want to do battle with each other. I think at the boards there was almost a confrontation between Sidney and Ovi. They were pushing each other and yapping at each other right at our bench. And but other than that, knowing it was pretty happy, and went and had a good meal after because I was pretty pumped.
Okay, Gabby, one of the things I'm curious about too is, like, this is, Super Bowl Sunday, right? 2010 afternoon game. The guys probably have a party planned for that night to watch the Saints and the Colts. Anything different you would talk to your team about at all?
Well, I would have asked them at the beginning, I mean, what parlay they had, because that was really important. See if I could get in on the parlay.
Yeah, get a little juice for the coach here. That's coach tax, boys. Pay some coach tax.
No, you know what? I don't remember. Usually the kind of stuff that I talk about would be, listen, boys, they're making us get up and ruining our day, ruining our Super Bowl Sunday by having a game like this. We're gonna take it to them. We're gonna do what we've been doing. We're gonna continue doing what we're doing, and we hate these guys, and we're not gonna let up. And that's, I think, they beat us in the playoffs, but I think we went a whole lot of games in a row beating them, whether it was overtime or a shootout or something after that. Because I know the one thing Ted had said to me, maybe as far back as 2007, he said, I hate Pittsburgh. He says, that's the most important game we got to win. And so I was always a little more up for that game because I wanted to please the owner, obviously. So, I mean, it's if we could beat them, I knew he'd be happy.
Did you, just as a quick aside, did you have the same thing when you were coaching the Canucks when you played the Dallas Stars? We all know about the acrimony between ownership there. Was it the same way?
Same way. Aquilini's wanted to beat the Dallas Stars. And if you look at our record against the Dallas Stars, while I was there anyway, it was an important win because they both were competing. They both competed. They both tried to buy the Canucks at the same time, all of those things. So, I mean, I knew there was a real dislike in the ownership department. So, again, it was a game that we took a lot of pride in beating them. And I think I was a little more emphatic before those games.
Okay, Super Bowl parties for you, either as a player or as a coach. And I want to frame it in one specific way here, Gabby, and give you a chance to think about this. And if you think about any of your Super Bowl parties, either when you were a player or when you were a coach, I got a friend of mine who does this every year twice. Once for the Super Bowl and once for the Grey Cup, which is, for all of our viewers and listeners who don't know, the CFL championship. So what he does is there's about 10 or 12 guys, and they all put in $100. And they put out the spread, chili and chips and wings and chicken fingers, all the things beer, all the things you'd expect at a Super Bowl party, okay? And what they do is all the guys, right before kickoff, they weigh themselves. And then at kickoff, they start eating and drinking. And at the end of the game, everyone gets back on the scale, and whoever's put on the most weight wins the pot. That is the craziest Super Bowl, party that I've ever heard, but it gets you involved in the game. And they all have strategy. Here's what you got to eat the night before. Here's what you got to do in the morning. They got this thing down to a science, and they do it twice a year. Completely unhealthy, and I'm not encouraging anybody to do this. But A, do you have a thought on that? And B, do you remember any Super Bowl parties from the hockey days?
Well, first of all, that's maybe the best idea I've ever heard. So, and you know what? This would be one of those days, I'm telling you right now, where the guy that would drink the most and eat the most wanted to puke, but he had to hold it in till the end of the game because you didn't want to lose all that weight, I would think.
You get $1,000. You got like $1,100 on the line.
You're holding everything in. I would believe the laughing that would go on in a contest like that would be amazing. I haven't heard of a better idea in all my years than that. I think the ones that I've gone to, nothing really stands out. You have your bet on the game, well, the one that, now that I'm thinking about it, the best one that I thought I went to was in Mississippi at one of the casinos in, I think it was 97. I knew the food and beverage manager in the place, and we have a big table, and there's a whole bunch of us. But the whole casino is there watching the games on all the big screens in this one room, and where the party was, and you got to make bets, and it was the only time I think I've ever won money. I won $2,000 on that thing, and but I was with everybody. I had to share it. I ended up with about 100, I think. So even though none of them had paid to get in, it really bothered me. But that's the way life goes. But no, you know what? Since about then, I think the best times I wanted to always stay home because there's so much going on at a party. You miss half the game, and I used to love watching the games. And B, I wanted to see and hear the commercials because a lot of times those are the best things that are going on. So, I mean, so I've sort of laid low. I mean, obviously when you're coaching at the high levels, you never go to parties where the players are. I mean, I would definitely stay away from all of that stuff. So, I mean, if I know the coaching staff in Vancouver, we had one in Clark's house, but I mean, nothing really stood out that as a player where I would have done something stupid or anything else like that. I mean, I might take some time and somebody might phone and say, Bruce, do you remember in '87 what you did? And I won't remember until somebody tells me, because I was probably a little bit in a state where I can't remember a lot of things the next day.
Probably overpoured by some scurrilous bartender. They tell me I had a great time are things you never want to have to say in your life. They tell me I had a great time. All right, with that, we'll get into it. Welcome to the Hockey Lifers, presented by PenFed Credit Union. Great rates for everyone. Okay, welcome back to the program, Gabby. I know you still have thoughts about strategies for that Super Bowl Grey Cup party idea that I was telling you about, but we'll park those for a couple of moments, unless you want to share any kind of thoughts about how you would perform at a Super Bowl party like that. But I thought maybe we'd do a quick little. Do you have a thought on that actually before we get going?
No.
What would your strategy be?
My thoughts. I already thought of all my stuff, and I've given you my info on that off the air. But I mean, I would definitely not go to the bathroom, and I would eat as much as I could. That's basically it.
Yeah, if you could think of a name, I'm going to grill you on this one. If you can think of a name from the past, either playing or coaching, of someone you think would excel at an event like that, who could just stick it away. Maybe they had like a hollow leg and you're like, wow, how can you put back all these chicken fingers and fries and burgers and suds and all of it? Who was the champion eater of your day?
Well, you know, the guy that I would think that nobody will know his name anyway, but you might remember his name. His name was Bob Neely. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
He played for the Leafs in the 70s, and he was always 10 or 15 pounds overweight. And so I would think that he would have done very, very well at an event like this. I don't want to talk about recent people because there's a couple that would be recent, but I mean, they work for Monumental, so I don't want to throw their names out.
Well, then let's just transition to the NHL today. Before we get to all the Olympic talk, and we'll go over that coming up in a couple of moments here. And we should shout out to Haley Skamura with a couple of goals for USA on the women's side of things. Former guest here on the Hockey Lifers, always cheering her on. But before we get to Olympics, a quick little whip around. And as we are here on a pause in the NHL schedule, I'm going to cherry pick a couple of things and get your thoughts on them. First of all, starting with the Washington Capitals, winners of 4 of 5 going into the break. And in that last game, game against the Nashville Predators, I thought a really classy touch with the tribute video for Barry Trotz and then the standing ovation at Capital One for Barry Trotz, who's in the manager's box, and the wave to the fans as well. I just thought that because Barry's retiring from the Nashville Predators and now searching for their next general manager, he's staying on until that person is found. Do you have a quick thought on Barry Trotz and the ovation from the Washington Capitals fans?
Well, I think it was great that he got an ovation from the fans. I think it was great that they did a tribute to him. I think he deserved it. They've only won one cup, and Barry's brought it. Brought two President's trophies to the organization. He did an awful lot for that for the Caps, and so he deserves everything he got. And if it's the last time that he's in that building as an executive of any sort, then absolutely should have got it. And if he's retiring, I just don't know. When you've been in hockey all your life, I don't know how you can retire. To me, it's tough. I think he's still young enough that, I don't believe Barry's making anything up, but I mean, if I was thinking like him, it'd be going, watching for 3 years, knowing what I could be doing behind the bench and being in that fight and he's only in his mid 60s right now.
Yeah.
I would have thought that he wanted to retire and coach again. And there's going to be coaching vacancies, I believe, in towns that he's lived or were born in, and that would relish the fact to have a guy like Barry Trotz as their coach.
Or provinces.
Yes. That was sort of what I was alluding to.
No, that's what I figure. You put like a little sort of breadcrumbs here for us to follow along, Gabby. We appreciate that. I do want to, speaking of coaches that have retired a couple of different times and come back and are doing quite well, I do want to get to Rick Bowness and the Columbus Blue Jackets in a second. But quickly with the Washington Capitals. So when they come back, it's 3 games in 4 nights. 4 points out of a playoff spot. Pierre-Luc Dubois comes back, which is great for the squad as well. But they have played 59 games. So the margin for error when Washington returns from the break is going to be slight. How do you see the Caps coming out of this one?
Well, I mean, I really like the way they went into the break, and I think they're going to be coming when the break is done. They'll be healthy, and I think it was important that Alex gets some rest when you're, I remember when Teemu Selanne went to the Olympics. He came back and we were supposed to rest him, but we didn't, and he was great. But I think Alex needs the rest, and he'll be reinvigorated and come out great, and that's a big thing for the Caps. I mean, I think Pierre-Luc Dubois coming back for 1 game was really vital. He scores a goal, and he'll be even more ready. But now that they've got their identity back as a big, strong team, and I really believe that the Caps, not knowing any inside information, will make at least 1 deal, as soon as they're allowed to make a deal to improve their team. Because I think, this year they do have guys going to the Olympics, where last year they had nobody going to the 4 Nations. But I think that's going to be a positive thing for them. I think there'll be put a real good push to make the playoffs. I mean, other teams are playing well, and they still have to climb over some teams. But I was watching golf yesterday, and this is maybe a stupid analogy, but I was looking at the leaderboard, and there was somebody that was in 10th place in the bottom of the leaderboard, and he was only 4 shots off the pace. And I'm going, the odds on this guy winning are remote, not because it's 4 shots, but because of how many people they have to climb over to get to that spot. You don't usually see it happening. And I think this is what hockey has done this year. There's so many teams are bottled up, but you have to jump over so many teams to advance. And I think it's a little difficult.
You know what? And you know who's feeling that right now, perhaps more than any other team, are the Florida Panthers. So the Florida Panthers are 8 points out of a wild card spot, defending Stanley Cup champions, as we all know, 2 times in a row. 5 teams to jump over, Gabby. 5 teams to jump over. Now, I know they've been plagued by injuries, probably fatigue as well, going to the Stanley Cup final 3 years in a row and winning twice. And let's face it, Sergei Bobrovsky has been hard to hit. The goaltending hasn't been good this year for the Florida Panthers. But nonetheless, to your point, like, this is new territory for a Stanley Cup champion. It has happened a couple of times in the past, but it's one of the rarest creatures. Stanley Cup champion 1 year, out of the playoffs the next. How do you see the Cats?
Well, Stanley Cup finals for 3 years in a row. So I mean, to me, I don't think they're going to make it. I don't think there's any chance they can make it, to be honest. But I mean, I think the whole hockey world and the state of Florida will give them a mulligan because of what they've done. And they have gone through, like, for half a year, their 2 best players were out. Not for 5 games or 8 games, but they had Kachuk and Barkov out for half the year. And Barkov is still out for the other half. Then they've had 2 or 3 defensemen out the whole time as well. And now you're right, Jones, Bobrovsky has been hard to hit. And I mean, his career has gone like that a lot. Like, I mean, he'd win a Vezina, then be horrible, and then win a Vezina, and then be horrible. So this is his horrible year. But again, he's getting up there in age, and sometimes you get old. And I don't think Florida this year is got any chance to make it, but I would like to see Florida and Tampa play about 6 more times, because if it's not the most exciting rivalry in sports, in hockey sports anyway, then I don't know what is.
So the way that I've been framing what we just saw most recently between these two teams, and again punctuated by a couple of fights, one between Matthew Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel. This is a recording. And then the other with Gustav Forsling and JJ Mosier, two very unlikely combatants. But when you mix in it's Tampa versus Florida, that's what you get. The Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers will not face each other again for the remainder of the season. Hockey is poorer for that fact. They will not probably face each other in the Stanley Cup playoffs because, as we document, it's going to be a tough road for the Florida Panthers to get back there. But the way that I'm framing it is this. Marty McSorley told me once, when he got traded from Pittsburgh to Edmonton, Dave Semenko was the tough guy there. And you remember Dave Semenko. He was the king of the jungle, make no mistake about it. And Marty goes in there, young gunslinger, and he wants a fight every game. And Dave was always, Marty, we're not doing it today. Marty, we're not going to do it today. Marty, we're not going to fight today. And Marty said one day, came into the room and Dave was taping up his wrists. And Marty said, Dave, what are you doing? And Dave said, Marty, every now and then we must remind them. And tonight we're going to remind them. And I look at that game last week between the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning and say to myself, that was the Florida Panthers reminding Tampa, this isn't our year this year. We're probably not going to go to the playoffs, and we're not going to face each other for the remainder of the season. But we want to remind you that we're not going anywhere, that we're going to spin right back here and be a thorn in your side. That's how I saw that game and how Florida and Tampa mixed. Do you have the same feeling about that one?
Well, I don't know if there was a message about the last game or anything. I just thought these two teams hate each other with a passion. And I think, and I think when I saw Paul Maurice get kicked out, they not only hate each other, they hate losing to each other more than that.
Oh yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a definite, battle of Florida going on. And I just, it's exciting because I think we had the same kind of thing with Pittsburgh in between 2007, 2010 anyway. And those rivalries are hard to find. The old Toronto-Montreal, Boston-Montreal rivalries where the fans come to the game and it's not expecting, let's have them going up and down the ice, win 3-2. No, they're expecting fireworks. And usually in those kind of rivalries, they got them. And I think that's what you get when you get Florida against Tampa now. And I think it's must-see TV.
You know what? I don't know much, Gabby, but I know one thing. This is a sentence that no hockey fan has ever said. You ready for it?
Yeah.
I can't wait to go to the game tonight because these two teams really respect each other. I can't wait to go watch these two teams respect each other out there for 60 minutes. No hockey fan has said this. They've said, I can't wait to see these guys tear each other apart. I can't wait for this game to take 4 hours. I can't wait for them to take 45 minutes picking up sticks and gloves. I know they've said that, but I can guarantee you no fan has ever said, I can't wait to see this one. These two teams really respect each other.
Well, listen, this is what I think. I know it's breaking off into what I'm different thing, but if Canada plays the U.S. in the Olympics, coming off of what you said, do you not think that people are going to be standing there at the bar saying, where do you see the speed of this game? No, they're not going to be saying that. They're going to be going, let's see what happens when the puck drops. Where's Tkachuk? Who's fighting who? What's going on? The anticipation of that game will be remarkable. Now, usually when that happens, nothing happens. But, if those two teams meet, because it'll be in the medal round. If they meet in the medal round, I think the anticipation all over the hockey world, where everybody will be watching, saying, okay, what's going to happen? And is Wayne Gretzky coming out the American bench, or is he going to come out the Canadian bench? What is, all stuff like that is going to be going on. And that's, to me what I'm really hoping to see at the Olympics: Canada versus the USA.
Listen, I had one manager a couple of weeks ago. I'm glad that you got us here, Gabby. We'll get back to the NHL. Who said to me, this is a Canadian manager who said, I hope it's USA and Canada in the final, and I hope Canada's running up the score and Tom Wilson challenges the bench. Like, that's the level of like and that's looks perfect. Right at the Kachucks and says, it's not Saturday night at the Bell Center here at Four Nations, but do you want to do it again?
It'll be like a little bit like, you'll remember this. Nobody else will. So I'm just talking to you.
Oh,
John Wensing going in front of the Montreal Canadiens bench.
No, the Stars. The Minnesota North Stars challenging the bench.
Yeah.
And you know what the nicest part about that one is? Our producer Sean, maybe you can grab the viz. We can show it. He does a T-stop, like a nice little figure skating T-stop in front of and John Wensink is like the toughest guy in the NHL, and he does this like cutesy little T-stop in front of the bench. Gabby, every time I see it, I howl.
Yeah. There was a lot of people looking for their looking to tie their skates up at that moment too. By the way, on the Minnesota bench.
A lot of guys looking for loose change on the bench at that point. I didn't see Wensing challenge us. No, I don't know who that was. Okay, back to a little whip around of him. Yeah. Oh, what's that? Yeah, you would have killed him. Dave's a killer. Him, Dave's a mess. I haven't asked you about the Artemi Panarin trade. So he goes from the New York Rangers to the Los Angeles Kings. We're behind on this one. We haven't been with you here on the podcast for a while. Do you have a quick thought on this one? I mean, Panarin didn't play before the break. He'll be there for the Kings afterwards. I mean, there's a lot of areas that the Los Angeles Kings need help in. And Exhibit A is offense. Panarin should help there. 2-year contract extension, $11 million AAV. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you're adding Panarin and deleting nobody. You're adding one of the best players, still one of the best players in the NHL, to a team that can't score, and you're adding this guy. I think everybody's going to see him, and they're going to go, "Wow, our management really tried to help us," and I think it's going to really uplift the Kings. The Rangers, I'm going, okay, I don't know Liam Greentree. We might not see him for 3 years, but.
Yep.
I do know a 3rd and 4th round picks are picks 80 and maybe picks 110, and they don't usually make it. So I'm going, what the hell did we just trade our best player for, who signed for 2 years? Why couldn't the Rangers have signed him for 2 years at $11 million and kept the asset? Like, I mean, that's what I would have done. But I don't know. Obviously, I'm not there, but I didn't think the Rangers got anywhere near enough for a player of Panarin's ability.
Not to get too conspiratorial here, Gabby, but snuggle up on the grassy knoll here with me for a couple of seconds. Why do you think the Los Angeles Kings would only sign him for 2 years? Why would they want to keep a lot of cap space open for 2 years from now? Wondering which contracts, maybe one in Edmonton and one in Toronto, would be expiring in I don't know why the Los Angeles Kings would want to maximize their cap space in 2 years. It's a mystery, Gabby. We'll have to see what happens here.
We will, and the GM, if he's going to be in LA, just happened to be a GM in one of those towns in Edmonton recently.
I never thought about that.
And one thing about the last great player that was in Edmonton, and when he got traded, he wanted to go to a big city, and that big city just happened to be LA. Wouldn't it be funny if that next big Edmonton Oiler went to LA when he had a chance?
That is nightmare fuel for every Oilers fan. I can hear Edmonton fans already saying, "Too soon, Gabby, too soon."
I was asked a question. I just sit here and answer questions.
I was just speculating, but you just sort of nailed that one there. Okay, mention Columbus Blue Jackets and Rick Bowness. Let's get a thought here on this one. There are some teams, when there's a break, they just don't want to stop playing. Like if you ask the Columbus Blue Jackets, do you want an Olympic break? No chance. No way. No how. Let's keep playing. They won 7 games in a row going into the break. They're still not in a playoff spot. But all of a sudden the Columbus Blue Jackets have turned things around. Listen, a lot of it, Jack Reeves has been great in net. Zach Werenski may win the Norris Trophy. He's been fantastic this year for Columbus, and certainly during this stretch. Do you have a thought on what we're seeing from the Columbus Blue Jackets, and are they screwing up trade deadline? Because the more that they win, I can't see them moving, Boone Jenner or Charlie Coyle or any of their other impending UFAs.
No, I mean, I don't see it, but like happening, but I still don't see them making the playoffs. I mean, I'll give Don Waddell credit. He probably wanted to fire Dean a long time ago, but he waited for the perfect time in the schedule. And they played 7 out of 8 at home. They were playing non-playoff teams. They were making, because every GM that when they fire a coach wants to look good. And that's why a lot of, when you say you get the new coach bump, it's because the GMs have timed the firing where it is. Now, I think the break comes at a really good time for Columbus because they were on too good of a roll. It is hard to keep that roll going. But they come back, they can start fresh because they could say, well, we're at 0. We've been 2 weeks off. Let's get it going again. It's hard. Like when you win 11 out of 12, like Columbus has done, then all of a sudden it's hard to win 16 out of 17, which is what they need to do if they want to actually get into the playoff race, because they've won, 10 or 11 or 11 out of 12, and they're still 4 points out. That doesn't continue. And then the first loss that they have, if they lose 2 in a row, then they'll be 8 points out, and that'll be a lot tougher. So, I mean, I think the break actually came at a good time for them. And I think Rick's done a great job. But, I mean, I think this is a good time for them to relax and get their gears, because they were playing as good as they possibly could. And it's really hard to stay up there at that point.
Okay, a few teams in the Western Conference here. Right now, I mean, the Central Division continued to look like, it looks like a murderer's row. The Pacific still struggling, Vegas and Edmonton on top there. But let me ask you about a couple of teams in the Central quickly. One, and a lot of this is fueled by Quinn Hughes, surprise, surprise. And the other we're used to seeing in this rarefied high air, and that's the Dallas Stars. Quick thought on Minnesota and Dallas. Here, 2 teams. I mean, we all know about Bill Guerin, the Quinn Hughes trade. We don't think that Guerin's done. Jim Nill, general manager of the Dallas Stars. I don't think anyone thinks that he's capped his pen and he's not going to make any more moves. I think we're all wondering about Nazem Kadri going to Dallas, but nonetheless, thoughts on these 2 squads, Minnesota and Dallas, who are, we should mention as well, linked by history through Norm Green. But nonetheless,
I think you've actually hit the nail on the head there. They're not done. If Bill Guerin is going to go for Quinn Hughes and still not have him signed, even though he thinks he can get him signed, he's still going to shoot for the fences. They need a number 1 center, or they need another center. It would not surprise me if they're going to go for Trocheck next on the Rangers. That would not surprise me at all. Dallas always, I think they got 4 players or 3 players last year. It wouldn't surprise me if they went out and did again, looked it up and made a hockey trade that was really good for them, because they have some assets. So, I mean, I think both of those teams are not going to sit still. And at the same time, I don't think Colorado's going to sit still. I think they're going to go for one more player. I think Colorado has looked in the last 10 games, they're under 500. And I mean, which is not a bad thing because they were going so well. But I mean, I think they know that just to get out of their division is going to be really tough, assuming they end up in first place and win round 1 against whoever they play, the 8th seed in the West. But round 2 is going to be a mess, because the team that wins between Dallas and Minnesota, people think, they're going to be coming out and they're going to be whipped because they're going to be tired. And that's not the case. What's going to be happening is the team that wins that game, that series, is going to be playing at such a high level. You're going to have to play at such a high level that the next team they play better be ready to meet that level. Because if you're not, you're going to lose. And it's simple to me as that.
All right. With that, well, by the way, before we wrap up on sort of NHL whip around there for a couple of seconds, anything as we're here at the pause, anything surprised you about this season? Any trends that you're seeing? Like one of the things I was mentioning this on another podcast the other day. Like the one thing that I'm sure of that we saw play itself out this year is I think we've seen the worst trade in the history of the NHL. And normally when we think of worst trades, we think like one team got robbed, one team got fleeced. But in this one scenario, both teams got fleeced in a trade, and that's a JT Miller deal. Because now you look at the Vancouver Canucks who are in 32nd and the New York Rangers who are in 30th. I know there are mitigating circumstances as well, but I don't think that I've ever seen a trade. Like certainly minor, like Ribeiro for Yanni Nienema, like small things that really didn't work out for both sides. Okay, that's fine. But you look at this deal and it made both teams worse. You know, the New York Rangers now are writing letters and throwing up the white flag, and the Vancouver Canucks are doing the same, and they're in the basement of the NHL. I don't know that I've seen a trade that has played itself out to have such a negative impact for both teams than that deal.
Good.
I don't know that I've ever seen one.
No, that for such a trade that was not only in the works, but media-wise was really brought up. And and it not only was bad for both teams, it made the players that weren't traded on both teams play worse. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, we thought Pettersson would be great once Miller left. Boom. He has been very, very average, less than average. And I mean, Miller is, he's on Team USA. And I think for that role, he'll be fine. But he certainly hasn't brought them to the promised land in New York.
Anything surprise you, or anything you want to sort of note on the NHL that you've seen this year that stands out before I transition to the Olympics here?
Well, the biggest thing to me is the mediocrity of the NHL this year. I mean, there's about 5 or 6 really good teams, and then everybody else is very close together. There's not a lot of difference. And that's why the standings for the first 40 games were so close, and why any team could beat any team. But I think in the end, there's like 5 or 6 really good teams in the NHL, and it'll come to fruition when they end up playing in the playoffs.
Do you think the 3-point system would cure that?
I do. I think that, I do like it, because there's way too many overtime games. And I think in the last 5 minutes, the road team right now, if they're tied, they just sit there and say, okay, let's at least get the 1 point. We're on the road. Let's take it to overtime and hope for the best.
Did you ever do that as a coach? Let's just get our point and then take our bets with the overtime.
No, I prayed that we just got our point. I mean, because we're the goalie's stopping them like the goalie in Slapshot. Like, I mean, and just get to overtime. Or like, I mean, those things. But I haven't tried to get to overtime just to get the point.
Yeah. Okay, so it's the Olympic break, and women's hockey has already got going, as we mentioned with Haley Skamura and Team USA. So we'll get more on the women's side of things as well next week. But getting into the men's side, which we'll see kick off this week. Look, everybody's expecting Canada versus US, right? These are the two teams. These are the two countries that have distinguished themselves in class. Sweden's banged up with all the injuries. Finland doesn't have Barkov. I know that there are always bumps along the way and surprises and detours and U-turns along the way to a gold medal. But all things being equal, everybody expects Canada and USA. But if there was an upset along the way, let's begin there. I wonder about Czechia specifically because of goaltending. Could they upset and surprise here? But is there a dark horse in all this for you, Gabby?
Well, I think Czechia is a dark horse. They play Canada game 1. Yep. If Canada doesn't take a lead in the first period, like by 2 goals, then it's going to be a really tight game the whole way. And Czechia, and I mean, they've got Pasternak and Necas on your top line. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you narrow the bench and they're going to play 30 minutes. If they can play at the high pace for one game, then Canada's in trouble if they get the good goaltending. Where, I think there's upsets to be had because I think no matter what the injuries, I think Sweden's going to be very good. I look
I do too.
at, I even look at a team like Germany, who has a first line of Stutzel and
Paterka and
Draisaitl
Draisaitl.
and
Yeah.
and Paterka. Like, I mean, that could be a pretty damn good first line, and they got Mo Schneider or Mo, whatever his name is, on
Sider,
defense. Mo Sider. And so, I mean, like, there's teams that can upset you. I would have, I think eventually, I hope the world settles down, because I'd certainly have liked to have seen Russia in there. They've got so many good hockey players, would have made it even better. But I don't think there's a hockey fan around, especially with taking a week off. Can't wait for the Olympics to start, because I think any team that's playing has got the possibility of winning. And every team that has a lot of NHL players thinks that they can be an upset dark horse. And so it's not going to be easy games at all.
Yeah. Okay. Let's drill down a couple of things here, and I want to get to Tom Wilson's position with Team Canada, which may have raised some eyebrows for some, and for some. I mean, listen, Jason Gregor talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but nonetheless, Team USA. I look at the squad and I say the strength of this team is going to be their blue line, and this blue line is awesome. Full stop. Hughes with McAvoy, Slavin with Faber, which was probably the best pair at the Four Nations last year. I thought Jacob Slavin might have been the best player in the entire tournament. And Zach Werenski with Noah Hannafin. It's Zach Werenski on your third pair. You're doing something right here. When you look at Team USA, what jumps out to mind for you? Because for me, it's that blue line that should terrify every other team.
Well, for Team USA, it's going to be the speed, because they've got defensemen that are going to be up the ice. They're going to be attacking as 4 and 5 all night long, and going to be able to get back too. But I mean, so their attack speed is going to be really, really at a high level. And so that's what worries me about them. And I mean, I think if you can ever contain them in their zone, maybe you can take advantage of the size of Hughes and Werenski and Faber in front of the net with some big forwards. But I think they're going to be so much fun to watch, because I think they're going to be in attack mode the whole game. So it's going to be interesting.
Goaltending for USA. Now, Connor Hellebuck, coming off, Hart Trophy last year, Vezina, et cetera, hasn't had the best of all possible seasons for the Winnipeg Jets. Does that matter if you're a USA, or do you default to the goaltender that was successful last year up until the final game against Canada? Vezina trophies, one of the best, maybe the best in the league at times. I know, Sorokin has distinguished himself in that class, so is Vasilevsky this year. Or do you go to Jeremy Swayman? Or do you go to Jake Ottinger? We focus so much on Canadian goaltending. What's the decision facing USA here? Which way do you default there, Gabby?
Well, to me, it's not a tough decision, because I don't care which one of them plays. I mean, they're all 3 great goaltenders. They're all playing great right now. It's not like the Canadian contingent, who has the winner last year in the net, or is he going to play in Binnington? I don't even think he's going to play. I think they're going to play Logan Thompson all 3 games. They'll play him the first game. They won't play him the second game, but I think then they're going to run with him, especially if they win the first game. But in the U.S., if I'm sitting there back there, coaches, I'm going, I'm not going to waste 95% of my time on which goal he's going to play, because they're all great. And to me, the way the U.S. schedules in the first 3 games, I mean, I might play all 3 goalies, and then in the medal round, see which one was going the best.
Okay, Gabby, before we get to Canada, one thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm curious how you feel about this. Now, this is no slight to Germany. This is no slight to Latvia or Denmark, but USA is playing in Group C. It should be, he said in quotations, it should be an easy time for the USA. Group E's got Finland, Sweden, Slovakia. That's tough. Italy's in that group as well. Canada, as you mentioned, faces off right away against Czechia. Switzerland in that group as well, who are always a dark horse in these types of tournaments. France in Group A as well. Group C, outside of the United States and in, a couple of specific areas, one, the top line, and Mo Sider, as you mentioned, on the back end, the other toughest out should be Germany. But is that a blessing or a curse for USA? Like, if you breeze through those 3 games, are you concerned that you're not prepared when the tougher competition comes? Essentially, what I'm asking is, do you want teams that push back initially? Do you want to get tested early, or do you just want to breeze through?
Well, it's a question that you can answer in a positive way for both things. I mean, I believe that you would like at least one game, once you've guaranteed your position, to have it a really tough game, and because I have found in my career that if we breezed through at least the first game of the next round, we're not as ready as the team that had to fight their butt off to get there. And I'll give you an example of this very quickly. When we beat the Rangers, I think it was 2009, we beat them in 5 games, and we had to wait for the Pittsburgh-Tampa series. And Tampa came back and they won it in 7 games, but they won the last 3 in Pittsburgh. And I mean, we were hoping to start right away, which we did. George got them to start. They ended on a Sunday. We played on the Tuesday, and thinking that, okay, they're going to be exhausted No, they were playing at such a high level that we, didn't take advantage of it. I mean, we lost the first game in overtime and the second game in an empty netter. So, I mean, they were still playing at that level. They hadn't come down yet. So, I mean, I think that's the one thing I would be worried about if I was the United States and won the first 3 games. Right now, I'm just looking at game 1. I want to win game 1 and then game 2, game 3. But as a spectator looking at it on where's this going to end next week, I would have liked to have them have a real tough game where they had to win the game.
Okay, to Canada, and I think we've beaten the goalie conversation to death. Everybody has. Like, that gum is chewed up and spat out. But there are a couple of other issues here that I want to highlight for you and get your thoughts on as well. Tom Wilson. Now, we know that lines will change throughout the tournament, and where you start isn't always where you end up. This is true of every single team. But at least initially, and on Monday, John Cooper closed practice, no media. But initially, Tom Wilson playing with Connor McDavid and Macklin Celebrini. Your thoughts on the guy who went from a question mark to make the team to playing, at least initially here, with Connor McDavid?
Well, I mean, personally, I had a text with my son last night, and I had Wilson on the right side with McDavid and Celebrini, because if you put an offensive player there in a smaller building, who's going to get the puck? Who's going to create the forecheck to get it for Celebrini and McDavid? And that's what I always look. That's why I think Hyman is so good for McDavid, because he goes and gets the puck. I think Wilson's a perfect guy there, and it's not like he's a slug. He's leading the Caps in scoring. I mean,
he can skate.
If you've watched
skater,
if you've watched the Caps the last few games, every time he goes and makes a big hit, it's a difference maker. The other team slows down, the Caps come out, and I think it's a big reason the Caps have won 4 out of 5 is Tom Wilson. And I think Tom Wilson will be that difference maker if he can keep his emotions intact, and he has. But I mean, it's the first time he's in the Olympics too, so we'll see how that works out.
Do you have a thought on how Canada breaks down elsewhere? Like, Seth Jarvis comes in, you feel horrible for Braden Point. He was a sort of the last addition for Team Canada. Sam Bennett in as well. At least initially, those 2 players are on the outside looking in. But like, your Team Canada, and you have Sam Bennett, who just won the Conn Smythe Trophy. You've got Braden Point, who is one of the speediest players in the game and a great penalty killer as well. Do you have a thought on, like, where are the issues that you've highlighted or positives / negatives for the Canadian lineup, the Canadian roster?
Well, just as the Americans have an unbelievable defense, I'm a little worried about the Canadian defense. Out of the 8, they've got 2 right-handed guys. I don't know if Doughty is still up to snuff to play at that age, what his body has gone through to play at that high level. I think Parayko's had a bad year, so I don't know where he's going to stand in when they do all of these things. And so, I mean, these are my questions about the Canadian defense. Is it going to be good enough, especially if their goaltending is not as good as the Americans or the Swedes or whoever? And that's my question, because I know they've got the best forwards in the Olympics. I mean, it's just when you have McDavid and McKinnon and Crosby, you've got the best. So, I mean, that's not going to be the problem. The problem is can their defense be as good as the other team's defense, and can their goaltending hold up?
We shall see. Okay, let's bracket that. Games are on the horizon. Let's get into Hey Gabby and Storytime. So, for Hey Gabby today, it comes off of our last conversation. This comes to us from Maureen. Pretty simple one. Hey Gabby, which men's hockey team wins gold at the Olympics? United States or Canada? First of all, that's the assumption from Maureen. It's going to be Canada-US. Who wins between these two?
Well, let me preface this that I got a call yesterday, okay, from a buddy that was, there was about 4 buddies in the room, and they had just finished listening to our last podcast. And
with TJ Oshie.
In that last, with TJ Oshie. And in that podcast, I guess I had said, if we want to do something, if we want to beat Canada. And they were all over me for thinking that I've been a turncoat and turned total USA. And I said, no, I've got my Canadian citizenship. I got a green card, but I'm not an American citizen. I'm Canadian. So I will say this, that I've got to go with Team Canada, or I will not be allowed home. My mother won't allow me in her house if that's the case. So I'm saying Team Canada. And to be honestly, I think the best thing for hockey would be Canada-US. But I'm always leery of those Swedes. They sneak in somehow. And listen, in the 4 Nations Cup, they were the only team that never lost in regulation. I mean, when you think about it. So, I mean, they're all going to be tough. I just hope I'm always about building hockey. And I think the best way to build hockey would be for Canada and US to be in the finals.
Absolutely. Okay. Maureen, thank you for the question. Now, for story time. This one should be an interesting one because we just celebrated a significant anniversary a couple of days ago. And that was the anniversary of Darryl Sittler's 10-point night against the Boston Bruins. For story time, either maybe if you want to talk about that game, and I still remember it, Jerry Cheevers at the end of the bench. He had just came up from the WHA in Cleveland, and he didn't want to go in that game. He put a towel over his head, like don't ask me to come on in relief here. Dave Reese is going to eat all these pucks, and we never saw Dave Reese in the NHL again after that game. Maybe you want to talk about the game itself, the event itself, or if you have a story or a thought on Darryl Sittler. Gabby, the floor is yours.
Well, Darryl Sittler, for people that don't know, was one, if not the greatest or second greatest captain in Toronto Maple Leaf history. I always put George Armstrong number 1, because he coached me and he was captain for 17 years. But Darryl Sittler was, I'll tell you a quick story about Darryl Sittler. He taught me so much because when I was first up with Toronto, I was, a high scorer and everything else. But when I would be near one of the last guys to get on the ice for practice, one of the first guys to get off ice for practice, and I remember him coming down after practice one day and grabbing me by the scruff of the throat, putting me up against the wall and saying, "Listen, you want to stay in this league." He says, "I'm the best player, and I'm the first one on and the last one off. You're the first one, last one on, and the first one off. You're never going to make it. Stay out and work." And like I would, whoa, like, I mean, I thought I'd had a good
Wow.
practice or whatever. But
Yeah.
that taught me something. And then from that moment on, I was very astute about when being on and when coming off. And that was the leadership ability for him. For that game, I've never seen a game where absolutely everything goes right for one person.
100%.
I mean, he's shooting them on in-offs from behind the net. I think he got 2 from behind the net.
Skates.
I mean, he's making passes in his own zone, guys going down and scoring and him getting points. But I mean, Darryl at that time I think it was 1976 or 77, one of the 2 years, was one of the best players in the world anyway. But I can't even imagine 10 points, but it was something you always strive for ever since that moment. If I'd gotten 2 points in the first period, I'm going for Darryl's record, It was always like a great carrot to follow. But one of the greatest feats in sports of all time, I mean, it would be like rushing for 400 yards in an NFL game. It'd be like hitting 4 to 5 home runs in a MLB game. So, I mean, 10 points is no easy feat. And I mean, I would liken it actually to Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game in the NBA.
Totally. So here's my concern about it. Like, I'm one of these people, Gabby, that every generation I want records broken, like big records broken. This is why I loved the Ovechkin race and Ovechkin beating Gretzky's goal scoring record. I loved it because I want every generation of hockey fan to feel like they're seeing something special, right? And for them to be able to say, like, my guy was the best and he broke that record. I think that it's great for the game itself if every generation some big records fall. 10 points has stood since February of 1976. Here's my concern. We've seen players, and I'll cite a game between the Buffalo Sabres and the Columbus Blue Jackets, where Tage Thompson went off for I think it was 5 points in the first period. And we all go like, hang on. Sittler's record. Like, he's got 2 periods to do this, and he's on fire. And what happened? His playing time was reduced. Playing time was reduced because you don't want to show up the other team. Where my thought is, if you have someone on your team who has a chance to break a significant record, in this case, Darryl Sittler's 10 points, even though you're blowing the other team out, and it might be considered bad form to put out your first unit power play when you're blowing out another team, I think when you have a record that could be broken, maybe I'm too emotional about things like this, but I think you owe it to hockey. Like, I really thought the Buffalo Sabres owed it to hockey to give Tage Thompson a chance to break Darryl Sittler's record. Instead, not going out on PP1, ice time reduced, don't want to show up the other team. I think that's a disservice to hockey. If you have someone in a position to break Sittler's record, you go for it. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've done both. I'm always cognizant of player records before a game and during a game because I was a stat freak type thing for that kind of thing. So, I mean, but I'm also cognizant of not showing up another team. But if a player got close, if Tage had gotten 2 points in the second period, I would have been all in playing him. He might have played with every different line, but I would want him to break Darryl's record because you're right. It does. Yeah. These things don't happen. Like, I mean, there's records that will never be broken. Now, like, for instance, for me, this is crazy, but the one record, I don't even know if it's broken yet. Bob Beeman's long jump in 1966 in Mexico. I think it was 29 feet or something. It hasn't come close. I don't know if it's, I don't even know why I'm saying that. But I mean, records like that. But if you've got a chance to break it, boy, break it. Like, I mean, I know for team wins and unbeaten streaks, I would be all in to try to win. If I got close to those records, I would be doing anything I can to win it.
So there's a couple. Like, I'm with you. There's a Glenn Hall's consecutive game streak, the goaltender 502. That one's never getting touched. No. Billy Smith, I don't know that it's an official record, but it's true. Had 20 as a goalie. Had 21 fights most of them with players. That one is never getting touched. Goalies will be lucky if they have one in their career.
I thought you were going to say breaking 21 legs with his stick. But
every time anyone would come out and try to circle in front, coming out from behind the net, here came the Billy Smith coho right on the knees.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. It wasn't him, but I got my leg broken that way playing.
You
Jim
did?
Petty
By who?
was the goaltender. Jim Petty from the Rochester Americans broke my leg doing that. But I knew Billy Smith did it a lot. And you know the craziest thing about Billy Smith is I was golfing with him. I mean, it was in the 80s. It was after they'd won the cups and that. And the guy's just a short little guy.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going, how are you getting in all these fights and being so vicious? You're smaller than me, for crying out loud. And that shocked me because he played so much bigger.
He really, and the thing is, like, he fought like tough guys. Like, he fought Steve Dordano.
Yeah.
He fought Dave Semenko, who we referenced. Like, he didn't care. Anyway, so those are the records that'll never be touched. But when I think you have someone in position to break a significant one, like your teammate Darryl Sittler, I think you owe it to the game to go for it. Anyhow, history about to be made as the men's side of the Olympic hockey tournament gets going this week. On that, we'll wrap it up. Gabby, always good to be with you, my friend, and we'll bid everybody a good rest of their week. Hockey Lifers returns next Monday.
Sounds good.